All right, we will go ahead and get started for the February 25th, 2025 Board of Public Works and Safety. We'll now call that officially to order. First and foremost, I want to welcome formerly Fire Chief Steve Arusa to the board. After 42 years serving in the fire service, I'm sure he's more than qualified to sit on this board. So we're excited to have you here, Steve, and appreciate you ramping up quickly with all the information as it's kind of flying in here this morning. For those of you that are here for the final agenda item, I can assure you I take pride in running an efficient meeting. So we will move through these other agenda items relatively quickly and get to why you are all here so you can move on with your day and be respectful of your time. With that being said, we will move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion.
I will second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Steve needs to abstain from the meeting minutes, I believe, because he was not here at the last one, so just make a note of that. Moving on to resolutions. First up, we have a request to approve the 2025 Fishers Arts and Cultural Commission grants. Morning.
Hello, Christy Cashin, Senior Planner in the Planning Department. The Fishers Arts and Culture Commission received 13 applications for the 2025 Fishers Arts and Culture Grant Program. On February 6th of this year, the Commission approved 11 of the 13 grants, awarding a total of $57,600 in funding. The recipients for this year's grant included $5,400 to Forward Motion, $2,500 to Noblesville Creates, $7,500 to Lantern Islamic Theater Community Company, $7,500 to Emerging Pearls Foundation, $2,000 to Hamilton County Artists Association, $7,500 to Fishers Music Works, $7,500 to Art by Johnson Simon LLC, $7,500 to Brandon Meeks Music, $4,000 to Jin Un Lee Music Academy, and $1,700 to Indianapolis Children's Choir, and one more, $4,500 to HSC staff for the International Fair.
Any questions on that item?
No.
Seeing none, is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Steve. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next is a request to approve the 2025 Workers' Compensation Insurance Renewal. Lisa.
For the record, Lisa Bradford, City Controller. The item before you is our standard annual workers' compensation renewal. As a reminder, it operates on a 3/1 start and then ends 2/28 of the next year. So pretty standard, continuing with IPEP. As you guys are aware, there's not a lot of insurers in the workers' compensation marketplace. So we have explored in the past some other options. Those really haven't really
The
been
self-funding option?
Yeah, we've looked at self-funding, we've looked at just changing providers. Like, none of them have really been significant enough savings. And IPEP, for some of the issues we used to have with them in prior years, has made a lot of improvements to their process with things. And so from a HR side and their liaisons with the other departments, we continue to feel IPEP has rectified those prior issues and everything seems to be going pretty well. They also continue to be one of the lowest in the marketplace for us. And so the renewal before you is pretty standard and really just based on an increased salary.
So what is the increase from last year?
So we are looking at roughly about a $5,000 increase. We had some increased payroll, but our mod went down because we've had a few less losses, so that kind of counterbalances the overall significant salaries increase.
Any additional questions for Lisa?
I think 5,000 in this space is increases.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Agreed. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Steve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Lisa. Moving on, a request to approve a special purchase of a 2026 Freightliner chassis. Tabitha.
Good morning, Tabitha Miller with Fleet Management. I'm requesting approval to purchase a new chassis for the Department of Public Works. This is our standard chassis that we buy for the tandem axle dump trucks. This is just the chassis, not the upfitting. I'll be back in a few weeks for that.
And the special component of this is because this is the,
Sourcewell purchasing agreement.
okay,
Without going to bid, we recognize about a $54,000 savings because they've already done it for us.
Great. How's lead time?
Pardon?
How's your lead time? Is it getting better?
Actually not bad. Before the end of the year is what they're estimating. Times are getting better.
good.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Jeff and second by Steve. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tabitha. Next is a resolution approving pedestrian trail operation, use, and maintenance easement agreement. Megan.
Good morning. For the record, Megan Baumgartner, Director of Community and Economic Development. Before you is a trail access and maintenance agreement. This is for along the Slate development south of Fishers District. So as part of our 2021 project agreement and land acquisition agreement with Thompson Thrift, the city was taking over a pedestrian trail that goes through that development. We wanted to be able to have access to that trail as a linear path. So this trail agreement puts in place the maintenance terms for both Watermark, who's the developer within Thompson Thrift, and then as well as the city. So the maintenance and repair of the asphalt itself will fall to the city, and then landscaping, mowing, everything else around there will be the responsibility of Thompson Thrift. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, is there a motion? Motion. Motion by Steve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, Elliot Holcren requests to approve access easement on the Indianapolis Airport Authority property.
Good morning, gentlemen. Elliot Holcren, Deputy Mayor, City of Fishers. Before you is a grant of access easement with the Indianapolis Airport Authority on the property on the northwest corner of 106th Street and Allisonville Road. This easement allows the city to enter into that property, begin clearing operations while we work out a long-term agreement with the IAA for agri-park operations on that parcel. So the IAA submitted info to the FAA seeking a change of use for that parcel. So I'll be back before you pending that. But in the meantime, this allows Trevor and his team to get out there and start some clearing operations.
Any questions on that? Seeing none, is there a motion? Motion. Motion by Steve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you,
gentlemen.
Elliot. Next is a request to approve a sanitary sewer service agreement for IU Health. Hatem.
Good morning, everyone. Steve, good to see you again. Name is Hatem Meki, Director of Engineering, City of Fishers, and before you is a sanitary sewer agreement with IU Health. Both item number 10 and 11 are standard agreements that we have with developments that come into the city. Basically, this is, the first one, number 10, is for IU Health. They have a new tower coming in to that hospital over there, right by Oleo and Southeastern. They are putting in a new sanitary sewer, and it goes north and east, and this is to prepare for their new development as well as the new target coming in just east of that development. So this is an agreement to operate and maintain the sanitary line for 3 years, and also an 8% inspection fee.
Any questions for Meki on either of these? We can probably move them fairly quickly. Any questions on either the IU Health or the Howe campus corner?
Just for the record, the Howe complex is on 146 and Howe. This is on the southwest corner. This is another sewer agreement. This is for a proposed Wawa development on that corner. This is for building a line just going south and west to the neighborhood right there to the west. And this is, again, for operate and maintain for 3 years, and also an 8% inspection fee.
Any questions on either one of those guys? No. Seeing we'll take each one of these. Is there a motion on item F?
A motion. Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Steve. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item G, is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Steve, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we move on to a request to approve an on-call contract with A&F Engineering. Hatem.
Hatem Meki, City of Fishers Engineering Department. This is a annual on-call contract with A&F Engineering. They do help the city with a lot of their consulting and transportation-related designs. This helps the City of Fishers Engineering Department, the Planning Department, admin, and all other aspects of the city. And before you is the contract, and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on this contract? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Steve, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is request to approve Duke Utility Reimbursable Agreement.
Again, Tim Mecki, City of Fishers Engineering. Before you is a Duke Utility Reimbursement Agreement for the 136th Street widening project. This project has been bid earlier this month, and this utility reimbursement agreement takes care of the relocation of Duke's facilities from Southeastern and Prairie Baptist. This is the west portion of this project. And before you is the cost, which is approximately $490,000. Obviously, this is an estimate, and we get and receive all of the actual bills and invoices once the work is done.
Is there a timeline?
We're working with them now. They went ahead and ordered the all of their required infrastructure, and they're hoping that we can get this done within a month or two.
Any additional questions for Mecki? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Jeff, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Steve, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we have a request to approve a curb cut on 136th Street for Target.
Again, Hatem Mecki, City of Fishers Engineering. This is to approve a curb cut on 136th Street for the new development that is Target right there on Southeastern Oleo. This is a curb cut that is just in between the roundabout on 136th Street and Minden Drive. This is just a right in, right out in between the two roundabouts there.
Is this in front of us because it's one of, like, 96th Street,
Yep,
161?
136 does require to go in front of the board.
Any concerns or questions on this from the board?
Are we redoing the roundabout at Southeastern, and what's the timing? I mean, I know it's not related to this,
yeah.
but.
Yes, we're.
Oh, it is very much
Well, I
related
mean,
to-
not this, but yeah, what's the timing of
The
that?
bidding is next year, 2026. Yep.
And that'll be complete before we get into this gets finalized?
Yeah, that should be completed before Target is done.
Okay.
There's also a roundabout at 134th.
134th and Oleo. Yep.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Jeff, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Steve, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Finally, item K is a request to approve utility reimbursement agreement for Marathon Pipeline.
Again, Hatem Mecki, City of Fishers Engineering. Before you is a reimbursement agreement for Marathon Pipeline. This is, pertains to the project of 136th Street widening as well, but this is the eastern portion from Prairie Baptist to Cynthia Ann. There is a Marathon Pipeline that crosses 136th Street. The current pipeline that is under the current roadway is encased. Marathon has changed their guidelines, and any changes to any roadways that are above their Marathon pipelines, they remove the encasing. So that work will also go ahead while the contractor is on site, and hopefully take advantage of the MOT that's on that's planned for that contract.
Any questions for Mecki? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Steve, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Tim. Now moving on to item L, the request to approve Connection Road from Laurel Falls to Knightsbridge Lane. Hatem, you had provided a pretty thorough presentation, both in a Zoom meeting with the neighborhoods, but then also came before this board 30 days ago and provided the presentation from your perspective and gave us a lot of different options and your recommendations. We wanted to give time for residents in the concerned areas to be able to review that information, share their comments, of which we've been provided, the board's been provided all the written comments from all of our residents to date, and we've reviewed those to the best of our ability. Some has come in as late as early this morning, so we haven't been able to chew through all of those, but I've tried to get to every one of the comments. We're going to open up for public hearing this morning to hear from residents. My only request is that you limit it to 3 minutes, your comments, and then if it's a redundant comment from the person before, perhaps maybe not necessarily have to come up and say the exact same thing the person did before, but if there's a different perspective, we'd love to hear that as we weigh these considerations. So with that, Mecki, I think you can have a seat. And we'll open it up to residents for a public hearing and ask you to step forward, state your name and address, and then share your comments.
Good morning. I'm Stephen Donham. I'm with the law firm Thrasher, Bushman & Vogel. Our offices are at 8440 Woodfield Crossing Boulevard, Suite 310, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46240. I represent the Legends at Geis Property Owners Association, Inc. Legends at Geis is a master subdivision containing 3 interconnected sub-neighborhoods, Sawgrass, Hague Point, and Spyglass Hill. A total of 616 homes in the neighborhood. My client urges you to vote against this project. The purpose of my comments are to focus more on the legal side of things and then cede the floor to the residents to speak to their factual perspective of the proposed project. I tried to submit a letter containing my written comments on behalf of my client this morning, and I got blocked by, did you receive it? Excellent, okay, because I got a spam filter warning, so I'm glad you have it. I have hard copies too. Great, okay. Well, I just want to highlight a few points from my letter. The first thing in our letter we talked about was the 1992 PUD ordinance that sets up the Legends at Geis. And Section 4B1 talks about and requires efficiency in street patterns. So I think from the onset, you have to view this project skeptically because we're automatically intensifying the street patterns that have existed in this neighborhood for decades. And so I think at best, there's a question whether this runs afoul of the ordinance, and the presenters to follow are going to talk about some data gaps, or in the very least, the data supports that we're no longer calling for efficient street patterns and running afoul of the PUD ordinance. Another aspect of my letter talks about expectations from the folks that bought into the Spyglass Hill neighborhood in particular. What did folks expect when they bought in? And I want to refer you to enclosures 2 and 3 of the packet. I have a 1993 Spyglass Hill Section 4A amended plat. That's sort of the east side of the project. And then the 2001 Spyglass Falls Section 2A plat, and that's the west side of the connector. The city's engineering suggested in its presentation that the city has an absolute right-of-way to connect these two via a road connection. And we submit that a closer inspection reveals a little differently. The right-of-way especially the Section 2A plat is modified by the phrase pedestrian and emergency access. And so it's our perspective that the right-of-way is not absolute, and that when owners invested into their lots, these plats were of public record and told them only to expect a right-of-way for pedestrian and emergency access only. And so we submit that this project would run afoul of what the right-of-way calls for. During the January 23rd webinar presentation by the engineering department, engineering indicated that they were approached by someone in Spyglass Falls indicating that it'd be nice to have a second outlet from that community and it would help Spyglass Falls home values, and that very well could be true. But we also think that we need to consider the values of homes in Spyglass Hill, and engineering provided a Zillow slide, and they were asked, well, what is this telling us about projected home values if this project goes through? And it doesn't really explain anything about how home values would be impacted. So what we did was, and you'll see it's the 4th and 5th enclosure in our written comments, we have a couple opinions from Indiana real estate brokers regarding the negative impact on home values on the Spyglass Hill side in particular. And so we think at best there's a data gap as far as studying the impact on home values, and at worst, we clearly have a negative impact on the home values in Spyglass Hill. We also talk about in our written comments how the existing pedestrian connection already complies with the UDO. I'll just let that speak for itself. I want to limit my comments just to provide you with the sort of the legal technical side of what we saw from our perspective, and then cede the floor to the residents to talk about their factual observations. But overall, we would ask that you disapprove this project. To do otherwise would ignore the limited nature of the right-of-way. We believe it would run counter to the 1992 Legends at Geis PUD ordinance. It would avoid a true study on the impact on home values. and topple the expectations of folks when they bought in, especially when it comes to protecting their home values. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions? None. Thank you for your time, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else like to speak?
Good morning, Board. My name is Dan Wong, and I'm a resident of Spyglass Hill. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I stand before you to argue against the proposed construction of a connector between Laurel Falls Lane and Knightsbridge Lane. This project, while well-intentioned, is based on flawed assumptions and misinterpreted data. Firstly, the city claims that crash rates at the intersection of 116th Street and Klotz Farm Boulevard are excessive. This is simply not supported by the facts. When we examine the data closely, we find that the crash rate is actually in line with comparable intersections along 116th. The perception of a higher crash rate is due to the inclusion of non-T-bone crashes, such as those involving deer, sideswipes, and accidents far away from the intersection itself. When we focus on the relevant T-bone crashes, we see an average of just 1 per year, which is consistent with similar intersections. Secondly, the city asserts that traffic data supports the need for an alternate route for Spyglass Falls. This is misleading. In fact, the evidence points to the contrary. Traffic volume on 116th Street between 2016 and 2021 has increased 6% annually. During the same period, T-bone crashes have remained flat. Furthermore, the average number of days between crashes has more than doubled over the past 15 years. This trend clearly indicates that in spite of traffic increases on 116th, the intersection has remained safe. At the end of last month's meeting, Mayor Fatness astutely asked whether if nothing was done, whether we would see a dissipation of the crashes. Mr. Mecki replied that he hopes that any change would decrease the number of crashes at the intersection. This is wishful thinking. A connector would account for only 0.5% of total traffic on 116th, as I've outlined on slide 6. There's a razor-thin green line representing diverted traffic. If you have trouble seeing it, it's because it's minuscule. This number is so small that it easily falls within the 10% of variation that is typically seen between weekdays. In other words, the connector would have negligible impact on traffic volumes on 116th. For the sake of argument, even if it did affect traffic volumes, we already know that the number of crashes has remained constant over the past 15 years, despite increasing traffic volumes. If Mr. Mecki is hoping to have any chance of decreasing crashes at the intersection with the connector, he would have better luck finding a needle in a haystack. So let's take a moment to put things into perspective. If you're trying to make a left turn onto 116th Street on a weekday, what are your odds of getting into a crash? Based on the number of crashes per left turns on a weekday throughout the year, your probability is about 0.0015%. Over a 12-year period, you would have the same likelihood of dying from a sunstroke. So your lifetime odds of dying while crossing the street, 12 times higher. Dying from a fall, 61 times higher. Dying from an opioid overdose, 97 times higher. So in conclusion, I urge you to reconsider this misguided proposal. Board, you have 2 choices in front of you. You can pursue a project based on misinterpreted data and unfounded assumptions, or you can prioritize evidence-based solutions and put funds where they're needed most. I know that you will make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you. One quick question for you, if I could. You're right. Thank you for the thorough analysis too, by the way. Your rationale for only including T-bone accidents and excluding any other accidents?
Yes, so over the past 15 years, there have been 31 accidents. Now, when you look at the data, there were 3 deer collisions over the past 15 years. In other words, 10% of all crashes at that intersection were due to deer collisions. Now, could you imagine if 10% of the collisions in Fishers were because of deer? You would either have a serious deer problem or you have a low base rate of crashes. And common sense tells us that we have a low base rate of crashes. That is the rationale for excluding non-T-bone crashes.
So every other crash that you excluded was from a deer?
No. So if you look on slide, I believe it's 3. So I break down the crashes by type. And you can see this histogram. So 17 of the 31 crashes were due to T-bone crashes. 5 were due to rear ends. 4 were because of same direction side swipes along 116th Street. So in other words, they had nothing to do with traffic coming out of Spyglass Falls. And then 3 were due to collisions with deer.
Any other
Yes,
questions for
Mr.
the
Arusa?
petitioner?
Yeah,
Steve?
Mr. Wong, this is a very thorough report. In your police report summary of the 17 T-bone crashes, is there a way to differentiate between visibility and failure to yield being the cause of the accident, in your opinion?
So most of the police reports that I read, they are categorized as failure to yield. And so when you look at the actual statements that are provided in the police reports, 15 of the 17 have some version of the driver saying that they did not see the other vehicle. 15 out of 17. That's close to 90%.
Okay, understood, thank you.
Any other questions for the? No? Thank you, sir. Greatly appreciate your thorough analysis.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak?
Good morning, my name is Stuart Gregory. I am a Spyglass Hills resident. In the 2016 review of this situation, the city elected to take no action, stating that, quote, "Sound engineering recommendations must be made based upon actual reported crash history and data," end quote. They elected to take the time to collect additional data in order to substantiate taking action. So after 9 years of additional monitoring, the city now states the crash numbers and data support the need to provide an alternative for Spyglass Falls, and that taking no action is no longer a viable option. While this clearly implies the data support a worsening of the issue, this simply isn't true. Let me explain. The city states its main goal and concern is reducing vehicle accidents and providing a safe exit. The newly updated data since 2016 actually shows this has already been accomplished. The crash rate data for accidents happening in the intersection went from 1.3 per year in the period prior to 2016 to 1.1 per year in the most recent period. And this improvement was realized with 116th Street traffic increasing by 53%. Despite this improvement in intersection safety, the city appears determined to label this as a problem intersection, citing a new safety metric, the relative crash rate comparison to other intersections on 116th. If the new goal is to continue to make this an even safer intersection in the future, less than 1 crash per year, then the road proposal is the wrong alternative. Let me explain. The engineering traffic flow study estimates that about 650 cars turn left out of Spyglass Falls every day, with about 25% of this volume expected to utilize the newly proposed connector. That leaves about 500 cars a day still using the unsafe intersection to turn left. The proposed solution does nothing to address the inherent intersection safety. It merely diverts a small fraction somewhere else. If you want to increase the safety for those exiting Spyglass Falls, you must address the intersection itself with either a traffic light or a roundabout. The benefit of these alternatives would extend to the 3 other intersections within that 0.2-mile stretch on 116th. I'd ask that you really think about what you're trying to improve. Avoid the allure of a cheap, quick, and misdirected fix, and address the safety of the intersection directly.
Fixes, and we are trying to put a great deal of thought into this, as demonstrated by the last 30 or 45 days of analysis and discussion, and we appreciate your comments here this morning. Are there any questions for Stuart?
Not right now.
Mr. Gregory, appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Mary Pape Orlowski, 9933 Deering Street, Spyglass Hills. I've been a resident there for 30 years. When the emergency access road between Spyglass Falls and Spyglass Hills was installed in the 90s, the then town of Fishers assured Spyglass Hill residents that it would only be used in the event of an emergency. The city now seeks to go back on that promise. I would like to direct your attention to additional problems, the cut-through of having Spyglass Falls people come down our street, Deering Street, to exit and enter off of Cumberland Road. In the 30 years that I've lived there, Cumberland Road has gone from a sleepy side road to a main thoroughfare, and traffic continues to get busier. Ever since the stoplight at Cumberland Road and 116th Street was converted to a roundabout, there is no break in traffic, particularly during peak rush hour, making it difficult to safely turn right or left out of our subdivision from Deering Street onto Cumberland Road. It gets even worse during the frequent occasions traffic from the new events center is routed down Cumberland. At times, it can take up to 5 minutes or more before I'm safely able to turn out of the neighborhood. There are also serious traffic issues at the intersection of Cumberland Road and 116th Street. Because the timing of the light is so short, only about 3 cars can turn left from Cumberland Road onto 116th Street per light cycle. This morning, we noticed a 4th car turning on the right on the red light. It happens all the time. The problem is exacerbated by the fact that the stoplight on 116th Street no longer has a dedicated left turn arrow from 116th to Cumberland Road. It's flashing yellow. As a result, people frequently run the red light when it's supposed to be time for Cumberland Road to turn onto 116th, meaning fewer people can get through that light. During peak times, when the traffic is backed up on Cumberland Road, there can be 20 or more cars waiting to approach the light, and it means it's not unusual to have a wait of 4 or 5 light cycles before they can turn. Routing additional traffic from Spyglass Falls through Spyglass Hills will only make these problems worse. Finally, even if routing additional traffic from Spyglass Falls through Spyglass Hills to Cumberland Road were the answer here, and it is not, the timing is wrong. As you know, Cumberland Road is scheduled for a major construction project to convert the road to a boulevard. Now is not the time to increase traffic on Cumberland Road. The real issue causing the problem is the city's failure to enforce the speed limit on 116th Street. The best solution here is to install a stoplight on 116th and Klotz Farm Boulevard, providing a break in the traffic and an opportunity for Spyglass Falls, Spyglass Hills, Archer Farms, and Sand Creek Woods residents to safely turn onto 116th. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions? Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Yes, sir. Morning.
Good morning. My name is Larry Orlowski. You just heard from my better half.
Yeah.
I live on Deering Street as well in Spyglass Hill since 1995. Like my neighbors, I'm here to oppose opening the emergency vehicle access to public traffic. While I agree the reasons expressed by my neighbors, as a resident of Deering Street, I would like to discuss the additional problems this proposal would cause to Deering Street. Deering Street serves as the entrance and exit from Spyglass Hills onto Cumberland Road. In case you've never been down Deering Street, I would encourage you to do so. Deering Street is only 22 feet wide, as opposed to the streets in Spyglass Falls, which are 28 feet wide. Deering Street is an extremely narrow road. When there are cars parked on the side of the road, it is impossible for traffic to pass in either direction, so someone has to yield, which everybody's pretty familiar, are willing to do that. Deering Street has a high volume of traffic, and also traffic at a high rate of speed. It is not uncommon to see cars speed by going 40 miles or over, and also school buses are also speeding on our street. Deering Street also sees a high volume of traffic. Since the City of Fishers has not yet conducted a traffic study, before my presentation here, I conducted my own study. On February 12th, between 4 and 6, a total of 197 vehicles drove past our house, which is about a car every 40 seconds. I found familiar traffic volumes during the evening of February 13th and during the morning hours of February 18th. During that 5 hours, I observed the flow of traffic on these days averaging between 70 to 90 vehicles passing our house during that time period. All this creates a dangerous situation for the families. We have a lot of young families that live on Deering Street. Opening the emergency access road will direct traffic from Spyglass Falls through Spyglass Hills will only make things worse. We know this to be a fact. Several years ago, the emergency access road was temporarily open to allow Spyglass Falls residents to drive through Spyglass Hills because they had a gas line break. During those few hours the emergency access was open, there was non-stop traffic speeding up and down Deering Street. If the city engineer's recommendation is adopting, this temporary headache will become a permanent nightmare for the residents on Deering Street. In my opinion, the best solution for everybody involved to put a stoplight at 116th Street at Klotz Farm Boulevard outside the entrance to Spyglass Falls. This will provide Spyglass Falls residents as well as our neighborhood and all the neighborhoods down 116th Street to turn onto 116th Street. So in conclusion, we urge the city to address the real problem rather than simply shifting the burden and safety issues from one neighborhood to the other. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any
Any questions?
I don't believe so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak?
Good morning, Mayor, Board. My name is Anderson White, 11216 Knightsbridge Lane. I've lived on Knightsbridge for 15 years, 5 houses north of the path, the proposed cut-through, with my wife and 4 children. When we moved there in 2010, 3 of our kids were 10, 8, and 5, and 1 was born a year after we moved in. And this morning, I'd like to spend just a couple of minutes talking about what residents along Knightsbridge Lane see on a daily basis, things that can't necessarily be captured in a report, charts, graphs, and photos. These specific safety issues are ones that we do not feel are going to do anything but get worse with the addition of traffic coming out of Spyglass Falls. And the first relates to speeding along Knightsbridge Lane. I expressed concern over the speeding on Knightsbridge Lane as it relates to this cut-through to the City of Fishers, and the response that I got back was, quote, "We highly advise all neighborhood traffic to travel the speed limit." And with all due respect, and as admirable a position as that is, the fact of the matter is, all the high advising in the world does little or nothing to affect how real-world people act and operate in the real world. I can tell you, after having lived 5 houses north of this path for 15 years, that people are traveling at high rates of speed, not uncommon, twice the posted speed limit up and down those hills on either side of the proposed new road. I've also not heard any mention during this entire process of any kind of speed survey or analysis having been done on Knightsbridge Lane historically, or any that are planned in the future. And of course, if they were done, the presence of monitoring is necessarily going to lower the speeds when people know they're being watched. Finally, I can tell you from personal experience, having traveled up and down Knightsbridge over that hill probably 10,000 times in the last 15 years, that I have never seen a single person stopped by a police officer for excessive speed, not one time. The second and more important issue has to do with sight lines. There is nothing that compares to the level of anxiety or danger that we feel is caused on Knightsbridge in this issue than the blind curve hill aspect of where this cut-through is going to be put in. I watched Mr. Mecky's presentation during the January 23rd Zoom call, and I heard all the statistics and I saw all of the charts. But a diagram cannot simulate the fact that cars are coming and going up and down that hill, often meeting at or near the top with a combined closing rate much faster than what either is going alone, all with very little ability to see each other and with other vehicles parked on either side. Plus, all the photos in the world can't recreate what it's like to navigate that hill, again, with several different types of blockages and side obstructions. Those things are necessarily static. Just this morning, driving out of my neighborhood, I noticed another one. It's trash day. And the two homes at the top of that hill on the east side both had trash cans out. That's another obstruction for anybody coming up and over that hill. For my part, I urge the city to find a solution that addresses any perceived problems related to Spyglass Falls without simply causing new significant problems for our neighborhood or exacerbating ones that are already there. It seems logical that a traffic signal, either at Klotz Farm or Spyglass Ridge, would solve the problems with Spyglass Falls and help with the city's chronic problem in addressing the excessive speeds on 116th. That solution might be more expensive than the cut-through, but it accomplishes much more without harming one neighborhood in favor of another, which is what the current cut-through plan would do. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Any questions?
No. Thank you.
Thank you. Morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah Lang, and I've lived in Spyglass for 23 years, since my son was 3 years old. Both Spyglass neighborhoods share the same goal, I want to say, to safely turn left from the neighborhoods onto 116th Street, which is what we're looking at. While neither neighborhood supports the cut-through as the best option, it does seem to be the only serious consideration today, so we'll look at that. Drivers using neighborhood streets to bypass main roads are trying to save time and tend to speed, increasing the likelihood of accidents and the risk for and severity of severe crashes. Because faster speeds and increased traffic volumes cause that. If the cut-through is open, not only will homeowners in Spyglass Hill be impacted, and properties that, but also properties in Spyglass Falls. Those that are in the back corner right now, which is a little quiet area, my house backs up to it, are going to find themselves on the corner of lots of traffic that is coming in a hurry to turn that corner and do the cut-through. If the cut-through moves through, the city must account for the negative impact on these homeowners. Traffic experts say an average home with a 2-car garage generates 10 trips per day, including delivery vehicles and guests. The engineer's report projects 25% of the Falls traffic will use the cut-through, which is 645 additional vehicles per day through Spyglass Hill streets. If just 25% of Spyglass Hill traffic that's already there uses Deering Street, which I think is low, that puts current traffic in the average range of safety already. And it goes excellent, good, average, and poor. Adding another 645 vehicles each day, at least 50% more traffic, likely more than that, shoots the traffic count deep into the poor level of safety, a fact that won't escape potential home buyers. Eventually, the city is going to have to address the congestion on 116th Street, which will resolve the need for a cut-through. Until then, opening the cut-through merely shifts the problem from one neighborhood to another and wastes $350,000 on a remedy that won't be necessary once 116th Street issues are handled. In the near term, there's a quick, easy, safe way for Spyglass Falls residents to go west on 116th Street from their neighborhood using infrastructure that's already there, a no-cost solution. Turn right onto 116th Street, then turn into Sand Creek Woods entrance and circle around the short boulevard, and then turn out from there west on 116th Street. Voila. Easier than driving to the bottom corner of their neighborhood and then circling back through Spyglass Hill, and doesn't involve additional traffic in front of homes in any neighborhood. The fact that this is an easy and obvious solution suggests there could be an underlying reason which also factors into the request for a cut-through: the desire to avoid turning left at the light at 116th and Cumberland. But if it's really easier and faster for residents of Spyglass Falls to drive to the back corner of their neighborhood and then cut through Spyglass Hill, other travelers on 116th Street and Google Maps will soon reach the same conclusion, bringing additional cut-through traffic through Spyglass Falls as well as more traffic through Spyglass Hill. These guests will be coming straight off the 116th Street Raceway and are definitely taking the shortcut to beat the clock. To assist our neighbors with the stoplight part of the equation, we request the city works with them to find a way the stoplight can be modified to speed up the left turn process, at least at peak hours. And if there's $350,000 for our part of town or extra in the city budget, we request that it be used to fix our neighbors' falls, providing a real return to them and the 116th Street corridor.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you very much. Anyone else like to speak? Yes, ma'am. Morning. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
I am Jana Hancock. I am the Spyglass, Legends at Geist, which includes Spyglass Hill HOA president. On behalf of the HOA, we are pretty disappointed that the city has not adequately addressed the Spyglass Hill concerns ahead of this decision. A request for a speed study for Knightsbridge and Deering was repeatedly denied. We're not quite sure why. Crash data alone does not fully reflect the current issues of safety without also considering the additional traffic volume, as Anderson spoke to. Additionally, the city engineering department report only included Knightsbridge, excluding Deering, which will also be heavily impacted in their studies. We know that of at least 3 accidents in the last 18 months that have not been included in the report. In filing a public records request through the Fishers Police Department, we show that 45 related traffic incidents has happened in the last 3 years, including 24 of those initiated by 911 calls. These were correlating to property damage, These were correlating parking issues, traffic stops, 5 traffic hazards, 3 driving complaints, and 7 accidents, including property damage, not 2. This suggests 2.3 accidents per year, higher than the number that the city is using to validate the need for action at Klotz Farm Boulevard. Given the area in question is small, that seems significant. Regardless of this project's outcome, you can expect to hear from our neighborhood to ask, what are you going to do to help with these issues? That said, the real issue is the lack of safe gaps in the exit of the neighborhoods on 116th. The city has said that they have tried to adjust the timing of the traffic lights at Cumberland and Hoosier in conjunction with the A&F report. Light timing depends on expected speeds, but if speeding is uncontrolled, gaps shrink. The long stretch between these intersections would benefit from stricter speed enforcement. What impact would that have on the concerns? Fishers PD is rarely seen patrolling 116th, yet concerns about the speeding are widely discussed in online community forums. Carmel PD and Zionsville PD have reputations for enforcement that naturally slow drivers. I know myself, when I go west on 116th, I am far more aware of my speed than I am in Fishers, and everyone goes as fast as they want here because they know they're gonna get away with it. The CEDS data shows, which is in Sarah's report that she shared with you, that stricter enforcement reduces speeding by 28% with no additional cost. I formally would request that a 90-day delay on this project be considered to prioritize stricter enforcement on 116th and reassess the impact. The issue has been tabled since 2016, and with prior presentations questioning that anything has changed, the city owes it to the residents to complete the necessary studies before making a permanent decision on this matter. Ushering this project through at this time would be an easy way out. All real data goals should be improved for the safety of all residents, not just creating the solution for the problems that we all feel. Creating these necessary gaps on 116th where all members in this area of the community can benefit from the solution. Lastly, I would like to have a hand raise of who is here to oppose this project, just to have great, thank you. And I would be interested to hear who from Falls is here to support this project. It feels a little lopsided when you are advocating for something so strongly that you feel about when you have the opposition speak much stronger in those show of hands. Lastly, and I know I need to wrap up, last night the City Council, to speak to Mary and Larry's points on the issues at Cumberland and Deering, last night the City Council approved 21 additional homes to be put in a neighborhood directly north 20 yards of Deering and Cumberland, adding to the traffic issues happening at that intersection that will contribute to that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification, last night they had first reading on a rezone, not an approval, but I certainly understand there is a proposed development on Cumberland Road. Thank you for your comments. Questions from Chief or
Thank you for the thoughtful email.
Yes.
What's that?
Thank you for the thoughtful email.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, we got that last night and kicked it to both parties, so they have that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Peter Greco, Spyglass Hill resident, and I have a different perspective. I think it can help both neighborhoods. I'm not minimizing the importance of the connector road issue, but please do not be distracted by it, because the real issue to focus on and solve is the access for Spyglass Falls and Spyglass Hill residents to and from 116th Street, which is difficult and dangerous. Why? Because the primary entrance and exit for both Spyglass Hills and Spyglass Fall neighborhoods is and will continue to be 116th Street. Both neighborhoods have the same traffic flow and safety issue with their 116th Street access. This is evidenced by the crash, injury, and property damage data that the City of Fishers Engineering Department has raised and is concerned about along 116th Street between Spyglass Fall and Spyglass Hill neighborhood entrances. Regardless of whether the crash data is interpreted to be high or low or persuasive or not, one crash is one accident too many, and all would agree that each neighborhood's access to and from 116th Street is difficult and dangerous. If there is a problem, the obvious solution would be to construct a traffic signal at 116th Street and Spyglass Ridge Drive, which is the entrance to Spyglass Hill neighborhood, or at 116th Street and Klotz Farm Boulevard, which is the entrance to Spyglass Falls neighborhood. Doesn't matter to me which entrance. Because a traffic signal at either location would improve the overall safety and operation of both intersections and would not necessarily disrupt traffic flow on 116th Street. But the City of Fishers apparently does not want to construct a traffic signal at either location, arguing, one, that it would be detrimental to traffic flow on 116th Street, and two, that a traffic signal at either location does not meet any of the signal warrants as defined by the Indiana Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. And the City of Fishers further states, tellingly, that even if a traffic signal was warranted, that does not automatically mean a traffic signal should be installed. In response to those arguments, first, to the first argument that a traffic signal would be detrimental to traffic flow on 116th Street, the City of Fishers Director of Engineering's own presentation slide made to the board on Spyglass Falls, Spyglass Hills access proposal alternatives, this sheet here, contradicts that first argument and expressly lists, quote, slows traffic on 116th Street as a pro or an advantage for the option of installing a traffic signal. They say it's good. In response to the City of Fishers' second argument that a traffic signal at either location does not meet any of the signal warrant criteria set forth in the Indiana Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, the Indiana Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices that the City of Fishers references specifically states the following, and I quote these bullet points. One, quote, this manual describes the application of traffic control devices, but shall not be a legal requirement for their installation. Two, quote, the decision to use a particular device at a particular location should be made on the basis of either an engineering study or the application of engineering judgment. Quote, while providing standards, guidance, and options for design and application of traffic control devices, this manual should not be considered a substitute for engineering judgment. The manual defines engineering judgment as the evaluation of applicable pertinent information in the applicable of other principles. The documentation of engineering judgment is not required. So, in other words, the City of Fishers has and can use its engineering judgment to support the installation of a traffic signal that would improve the safety of Spyglass Hill and Spyglass Fall residents along 116th Street, but apparently does not want to. So, instead, it is using the Indiana Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices and its unwarranted traffic signal as an excuse not to install it. The City of Fishers also states that if a traffic signal is warranted, that doesn't automatically mean that a traffic signal should be installed. But the opposite is also quite true. That a traffic signal that does not satisfy the warrant criteria set forth in the manual does not automatically mean that a traffic signal should not be installed. Just use common sense and use engineering judgment in support of the feasible and justifiable request coming from its constituents to put in a traffic signal. I'm just changing subjects here and very briefly. Regarding the connector road issue, I have a couple of questions and comments. I ask you, please raise your hand in response to the question. Who on this board believes that a connector road between Spyglass Falls and Spyglass Hill for more cars to travel through Spyglass Hill would enhance traffic flow and safety in Spyglass Hill?
I think we'll save our opinions until we're done hearing from everyone.
So I ask you, please don't reroute Spyglass Hill's vehicular traffic. Keep in mind that the real issue is what is happening along 116th Street. And importantly, the option 2 that is recommended by the engineering department is misleading because it incorrectly states that the option does not increase traffic into Spyglass Hills neighborhood. It does, but they're telling you in their presentation that it doesn't. And also because it does not disclose, as was mentioned earlier, that the existing right-of-way was limited and platted for pedestrian and emergency use or access only, not for regular vehicular traffic. So, in summary, even if you do vote to allow a connector road between the two neighborhoods, you should really be focusing on the real issue along 116th Street. And even if you do vote to allow a connector road, the real issue still exists and will continue. And there will be more accidents there that will continue to happen, and that's one too many. Thank you.
Sir. Greatly appreciated. Anyone else like to speak? Oh, awesome. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you, everyone, for convening this meeting and listening. I appreciate it.
It's a great first meeting for a chief to be a part of.
I bet. Yeah.
Drinking from a fire hose.
God bless you. My name is Joel Israel. I'm a citizen that lives in Spyglass Hills. I'd like to spend my time today speaking on the role of government. My personal philosophy of government, whether local, state, or federal, can be summed up by Thomas Sowell, who said that when it comes to policy and public involvement, the government can, at best, offer trade-offs, not solutions. I don't say this with any kind of cynicism or hatred toward government. I actually believe that God himself has instituted government in order to protect and defend its citizens. And so it plays a very significant and necessary role in any society. I'm very thankful for all of your service. However, the government is also limited in both its power and its resources, which means that when it does exercise its authority, it does so at the cost of someone else. Resources shifted in one direction have to be taken from another. With that in mind, then, I think that when the government does intervene, it should ask itself several questions to evaluate the wisdom of that intervention. First, is it necessary? That is, does a genuine or substantial problem exist which would require the government's involvement? I believe others, like my friend Dan Wong, have shown in their addresses that a significant or unique problem does not actually exist at the intersection of Spyglass Falls and 116th Street. So I won't belabor that point any further, other than saying I believe the city has yet to convincingly prove this intersection warrants such a dramatic infringement on Spyglass Hills traffic. Second, is it safe? Does the government's proposed intervention create an environment or society which, with better protection for its citizens than would exist without its intervention? Again, it would seem the answer in this particular scenario would be that this proposed involvement in the government would, at best, shift any danger from one area to another. However, as a citizen who owns a home on Deering Street, the street that would undoubtedly be most affected by this decision, I strongly argue there would actually be an increase in potentially dangerous traffic given how narrow that road is, how much traffic already exists on it, and how many cars tend to legally park on either side of that road at the time. The final question I'd ask you all to consider, is it fair? Will your decision be marked by equality? While I sympathize with my neighbors in Spyglass Falls and any annoyance they might feel about the entrance and exit into their neighborhood, all of us in Spyglass Falls and Spyglass Hills purchased and continue to occupy our homes knowing exactly what the traffic flow is like and how the entrances and exits to our neighborhoods are designed and were designed. To later require homeowners and citizens to now live on a street which services two neighborhoods instead of one would seem dramatically unfair, which is perhaps an understatement. Also, as far as I understand it, this decision would heavily favor one side in that it only gives Spyglass Falls access to Spyglass Hills. Those in Spyglass Hills would not be able to use this road to enter into Spyglass Falls. Even anecdotally, the fact that all public comments in this morning's meeting have so far been from Spyglass Hills citizens would indicate that this decision largely and almost exclusively impacts one side above the other. That does not seem fair. For these reasons, and I believe several others that you've heard today, I would urge the City of Fishers to make the wise decision in this particular case and not exercise its power, as the trade-off is simply not worth it. The cost will greatly outweigh the benefit. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to speak? Morning.
Morning. I'm Dave Magner, and I'm the Vice President and Common Area Chair of Spyglass Falls. Been a resident here for 8 years and a resident of Hamilton County for over 47. I have a 16-year-old granddaughter. You know what she does? She drives. I rode with her the other day and watched her try to exit our neighborhood onto the westbound 116th Street. And I coached her. I should be a driver's instructor because I've driven for 58 years with no accidents. Common sense means that we need to look for alternatives to make both neighborhoods happy. And I've got a solution to that. It would cost less than $200,000. You know what that is? Put an arrow instructing westbound traffic to use the right lane only to allow enough room for us to merge onto westbound 116th Street. That'd be less than $200,000 probably, and put it in both neighborhoods. Because they have a problem in Spyglass Hill turning left also, but they have a wider median that's separated by actually an island, which actually protects them better. If you put a flashing yellow light in or a direction arrow admonishing people to use the right lane only, it would allow us to merge safely onto westbound 116th Street. This could be done by putting a sensor in the pavement below vehicles that are turning left that would activate the yellow lights. If that doesn't work, then why don't we put a speed sensor out there, like it's downtown Fishers right now, at 25 miles an hour. People are driving, as stated, over 40 miles an hour, over the speed limit with 40. I've observed people on that street driving at 70, 80 mile an hour. And the average speed going up the hill is at least 55. So if you slow the traffic down, allow people to use the left lane to exit onto westbound 116th Street, that'd be an easier solution. It would cost less money and make both neighborhoods happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Mark Lewis. I live in Spyglass Falls, Rainbow Falls Lane. My wife and I built our home in 2004, so we are 20 plus years residents of that. So I think thank you all and Mr. Meckie and the engineering team for reviewing this. I know as part of the HOA with Spyglass Falls, this was a big topic of discussion since I've been on the board since 2005. And I know there was this kind of was addressed, I believe, about 9 years ago or so, in 2016 when we were at this, which is a much calmer, nicer meeting, so I appreciate everyone.
I agree with that, yeah.
The big thing that's changed for me is I've always been an advocate of some sort of solution. I will leave it up to you guys and the engineering department to determine what that best solution is. But I know we've been waiting since 2016 for some action to be done. The thing that's changed for me is my kids are 15 and 16, and my oldest is now driving. And we've had a lot of discussions about leaving our neighborhood. We have one way in and one way out, and that's a fact. So anything we can do to help with the safety of the younger inexperienced, in really everyone, I think, is the main solution that we want here. So thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate the consideration.
Thank you for
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Nathan Kellner. I'm the HOA president of Spyglass Falls. As an HOA, our top priority has always been the safety of the members of our community. Over the past decade, since Fishers became a city, we've undergone explosive growth, so much so that Fishers has become one of the fastest growing cities in America. With that growth, we've also seen an increased risk with our safety. The traffic studies have clearly shown that the amount of traffic going down 116th has significantly increased just over the last 4 years. We sincerely thank you for your time, energy, and efforts to address our safety concerns in working to make our residents, especially the young and the old who have the most issues in exiting our neighborhoods, safer. Allowing for a second exit in our community will very likely save lives. So again, thank you for being so attentive to the needs of the greater residents of Fishers. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak today? Okay. Oh, I didn't see you back there, sorry. Good morning.
I'm Martha McCoy.
Can you pull that microphone down a little bit?
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
I live in, I'm in 11109 Laura Falls Lane, where my property is right on that walkaway and bicycle path. I moved to my neighborhood 23 years ago, in 2002. I'm really concerned about the problem that is going to create opening this as a roadway. Every day, there is multiple children playing around on that corner. It used to be a kind of a secure place for people walking their pets, children playing in the corner. So opening this is going to create another problem that we have. The problem is on 160, the exit. And the concern is not only for my property, but the neighbors all around my area, as well as the people on the Spyglass Hills. So please take that into consideration.
Thank you.
Instead of creating a new problem. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Morning, Mr. Mayor.
Morning.
Board, thank you for your time. This proposed street conversion, Spyglass Falls, Spyglass Hill, is seriously a recipe for disaster, unintended consequences, and frankly, a waste of tax dollars. I live at 11099 Knightsbridge Lane, right across from the walking path in the proposed street, so at the top of the hill. I've seen firsthand what happens when you try to use a path as an access point. When a couple of years, as was mentioned earlier, the path was open when 116th Street was under construction. Heard numerous honking horns, squealing tires, and in one instance, an intense verbal confrontation. That was not with me, it was a couple of other people. I don't think this is what you really want. It is a safety nightmare waiting to happen. And if we're real about this, the hill at the top of Knightsbridge Lane, it's a blind spot. I've lived there for 3 years, and numerous times, while cutting grass, edging the curb, or just getting the mail, cars have come really close to hitting me. you can't see coming up the hill what's coming at you. And it is a blind spot, and it's going to cause further problems. You can't see oncoming traffic. It's a challenge for me to even to back out of my driveway, seeing both directions, and this proposal is calling to add another access point. Even the former Spyglass Falls HOH president, Rob Glink, I believe is the last name, called this spot a dangerous area multiple times when interviewed by the Fishers Current in 2023. And he's right. And there's no benefit to the Hills neighborhood. It's a dangerous area, and it will only be exasperated by putting in a street there. You've got the data, but we've got the reality of living there. We know adding more traffic to Knightsbridge and Deering is a terrible idea. This isn't about some abstract traffic flow, it's about safety. This is about the quality of life in our neighborhood. This proposal is dangerous, it's expensive, and it ignores common sense. So please, don't let this happen. I ask that you reject the proposal and you find a meaningful solution for Spyglass Falls because they have a real issue, and that is the traffic on 116th Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, thank you for letting us speak this morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
My name's Christina. I oppose this. I live in Spyglass Hill. While the primary focus of this effort is appropriately aligned with the city's main goal of reducing vehicle accidents and providing a safe exit, references to bringing Spyglass Falls up to code with respect to ingress-egress standard is often cited as well. I wanted to share my thoughts on this and why I believe the current Spyglass Falls access in fact meets both the historical and current standards. Ensuring access to our neighborhoods in emergency situations is an important aspect of safety and was the basis for the fire department access city ordinance that was passed back in December 2005. This stated that moving forward, neighborhoods having more than 49 homes would need a secondary entrance to address emergency access needs. Even though Spyglass Falls was built before this ordinance was passed, this neighborhood fortunately does satisfy the secondary access requirement with the existing paved path between the two neighborhoods. As we know, this paved path is flexible and that quick removal of the wooden post can readily open the access point to emergency vehicles and emergency exiting by residents. In 2016, this was validated by the City of Fishers Fire Chief, Steve, who indicated that, quote, unquote, the current pedestrian emergency access point adjacent to Knightsbridge Lane is acceptable as a secondary emergency access point, end quote. It has been used successfully in this capacity several times in the recent past, validating its intended utility and design. In fact, the city continues to approve new large neighborhoods with this exact same flexible secondary access approach currently in place for Spyglass Falls. The 80-home Pulte Homes development called The Havens on the northwest corner of 96th and Cumberland is one example. While the Falls and The Haven do have this flexible secondary access point in place, there are 20 other neighborhoods in Fishers with over 49 homes that only have one ingress-egress point with no flexible secondary option like the Falls has. Many of these also exit onto busy roads like 116th Street, Fall Creek, 131st, and 126th Street. If there is indeed a focus on bringing neighborhoods up to code, resources might be better spent focusing on the large number of other neighborhoods truly in need of the emergency access. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else?
You got one more.
Yep, come on up.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity,
Morning.
for the feedback. I am a resident of Spyglass Hills, and my husband sent you an email with pictures, and he talked to you and shared pictures. So in October 2023, we woke up at 5 a.m. from the explosion. When we ran outside, we realized that it was not an explosion. It was a car that drove 60 miles an hour down the hill and ran into our driveway. We had two cars that were parked on the driveway, and they were completely destroyed. On the good side, it was just money involved, and no one was hurt. However, just imagine that it happened after 6 a.m. when kids are outside waiting for a bus. And by the way, the driver was not intoxicated. The driver just had something stuck in his eyes. We had police on the scene, and again, it's all in the police report, that he was totally fine, just had something in his eye. So children were saved, and the collision with our cars saved our neighbors, because the trajectory of the speeding car, if was not stopped by our cars, would run into the neighbor's house. And at that time, the neighbor was downstairs already getting ready for work. So really would like to draw your attention to that situation. And again, according to police that was on the scene, they were not surprised that things like that did happen, considering the angle of the road and considering that they already had reports of cars speeding many times in the area and on this hill. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak today? Last but not least.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing us to speak. My name is April. I live in Spyglass Falls, and I'm one of the minorities speaking from that neighborhood today. But my viewpoint might surprise you. I have been a resident of Spyglass Falls for 7.5 years. I live on Niagara Drive at the back part of the neighborhood by the walkway. Neighbors and visitors have complained about the safety and length of time to turn left on 116th Street from Klotz Farm Boulevard. I have 4 kids, and my oldest is learning to drive. We do not allow left turns out of our neighborhood unless it is very early in the morning, like before 7 a.m., and that will be the rule for at least a year after she gets her license. The same for our other children when they learn to drive. I originally wanted to support the walkway being transformed to an exit-only lane from Spyglass Falls. However, my opinion has been modified by Mr. Gregory's recommendation of a roundabout or a traffic light, as well as the 30-year resident of the neighborhood next to mine. She had good information about the traffic situation on Cumberland Road from Spyglass Hills. As her husband said, the roads in Spyglass Hills are very narrow, and I know, I go in there too. They're very narrow, more narrow than the roads in Spyglass Falls. The walkway becoming a lane is not the best option, something that hasn't really been addressed. I have heard when attending my HOA meeting, that the city of Fishers legally needs to allow 2 exits from a neighborhood. To my knowledge, it does not necessarily specify emergency exit only. However, I'm satisfied with that as long as we have a traffic circle or a traffic light at Klotz Farm Boulevard and 116th Street. I appreciate the ideas that the HOA president spoke. She has good ideas about having police monitor the traffic on 116th Street. We live at the back of our neighborhood, and we can easily hear vehicles traveling at very high speeds late at night on 116th Street. A traffic light, or even better, a traffic circle, will help with that speeding traffic and traffic flow. If the only options are to approve or deny the walkway becoming the exit-only road, then I support the exit-only road due to left turn safety onto 116th from Klotz Farm Boulevard. But as you have heard, that is a quick fix and likely not the best for the 116th Street traffic and speeding problems. Please make it possible to have a traffic circle at Klotz Farm Boulevard and 116th Street. And if not, a traffic light or some other ideas mentioned, like the flashing speed monitor sign. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will go ahead and close the public hearing component of this. First, I want to ask Jeff or Steve if they have any questions or follow-up for Hatem or any of the speakers.
Hatem, we've got a stoplight at Fresh Time. If you compare, and I don't know if this is correct, and you're the subject matter expert as an engineer, somebody was quoted as saying 500 to 650 left turn exits per day. Compare that to the fresh time that has a stoplight. What's your opinion on that?
I think you're talking about two different situations here. We're talking about a business that, you know, fresh time, something, you know, obviously it's not a residential development. There obviously could be an argument made, well, why didn't you put it here on Klutz Farm or on Spyglass Ridge? I think the traffic study that we have done does not warrant the traffic coming out from Klutz Farm. It doesn't meet the threshold for 3 warrants that we have for a signal at that intersection. We looked at an 8-hour, we looked at the 4-hour, and we looked at the peak hour, and it does not meet the warrants for a signal at Klutz Farm.
Can you explain what a warrant is for everyone?
The warrants is if you look at the traffic coming on 116th Street and Klutz Farm for an 8-hour period, there are thresholds where a signal comes in. Just think of it as the volumes coming out of Klutz Farm and the volume going on 116th Street. They meet a threshold, and that's where that warrants a signal. Now, if that doesn't meet, we go to the 4-hour volumes, and that raises the threshold a little bit, but if that meets, then you do have a warrant for a signal. Then if that doesn't meet, you go to the peak hour, and if the peak hour, obviously the thresholds increase a little bit. So if the traffic that comes out of Klutz Farm and on 116th Street on the peak hour meets that warrant, then the signal is warranted at that time.
Tim, can you do me a favor? On that computer, can you pull up the city's website and go to GIS and go to the aerial view of focusing, I guess, on either the Klutz Farm or just generally speaking, the Spyglass Hills and Falls?
While he's doing that, I just, being a member of the board for a long time, just want to say thank you for the professionalism of this meeting.
Absolutely.
Compared to the 2016 meeting and the thoughtfulness and the respect of the neighbors. That was a nice change from 2016.
Could not agree more. I really do appreciate the thoughtful comments from everyone this go-around. 9 years made quite a difference in the conversations and the interactions with everyone, so I greatly appreciate that. Scroll to the east. I'm sorry, east.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. And then zoom out a little bit.
Sorry.
All right. So I'm going to provide my thoughts on this. First of all, thank you all for coming out. This is exactly what government should look like, where we propose ideas, you bring your local insights and experiences and lived experiences forward and provide your rationale. And MECI was tasked with rewinding, frankly, some of the poor urban planning that was done over the last 30 years. Some of the reasons you absolutely love your neighborhoods are exactly the reasons why traffic is a nightmare at times in Fishers, is because we funnel all of it out one way onto one thoroughfare, and you have just a lot of congestion in those areas. And so MECI and the engineering team was tasked with coming up with a variety of solutions that might alleviate some of the safety concerns of a neighborhood. And I remember 9 years ago thinking about this and being hyper fixated on, well, what is IKEA going to do? And what is the district that we were building at the time, what was that traffic going to do to impact this area? And so we said, well, let's call timeout and let's see what this can look like long term. As you guys were all speaking today, as I was listening, I kept staring at this image. And the reason I kept staring at it is a very stark image. If you look at your neighborhoods, and then you look at the land between your neighborhoods and the lake, of which the majority of those properties are now for sale. And there is a good chance that that's going to develop into a more dense use than what's there today. I don't know what that is. I'm not telling you that there's going to be any one project or another. I'm just saying that in Fishers, if land goes up for sale, it tends not to stay in the current form it's in, but tends to get developed. And as I contemplate more residential development heading into this area, either on the north side of 116th Street or on the south side of 116th Street, it gets me concerned about this particular solution, because this solution won't solve for what's going to happen here in the next probably 3 to 5 years. what's gonna happen in the next 3 to 5 years is you're gonna see more residential development in your proximity to your neighborhoods. So from where I sit, it starts tipping the scale towards trying to address more of 116th Street than it did probably even a year ago when none of that property was for sale and we thought it was all just gonna stay in its current state. Today, I start to really think about maybe we do need to look at a longer-term solution. I don't believe, anyone here that thinks there's gonna be a roundabout on 116th Street in this area, that's not gonna occur. And it actually would make life worse for you in terms of just continuous flow traffic. Go down to 96 in Allisonville, and you could experience that right now. There's a lot of traffic volume going through that area. I want to thank the HOA board leaders that were here today from both. They sent a very thoughtful letter late last night to all of us, explaining their desire to make sure that no solution tears the relationship between the two neighborhoods apart, and a genuine concern and desire to try to find the best solution collectively together. And I thought that was really refreshing to have them send that letter out last night. So before I, kind of say what direction I want to go, Jeff or Steve, is there anything else you guys like to say?
No, I mean, I think there's no perfect solution, right? And I think we're trying to find the best and the best mechanism overall. And that creates passion in people and understandably. And I think we're trying to take all that into consideration, and appreciate what you just said about the development to the east. I mean, I guess I hadn't thought about that. So yeah, that's changes my.
Chief, anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I really appreciate the data and analytical approach because it's real and it's reality. But on the other hand, I also appreciate the feelings of the people that live there because they have to be considered heavily. So thank you for that. I agree with the mayor that we need to have vision for the future in what we decide now. So it's not just a Band-Aid, a temporary solution, but actually contributes to a better solution to improve the quality of life and improve the traffic and reduce accidents.
So here's my recommendation, and honestly, it's my sincere hope we never have to have this meeting again. Amen to all. I'm sure all of you feel the same way, right? Can I get an amen on that one? Yeah. Right. Maggie, my recommendation, and it's dependent upon these two's decision as well, my recommendation is that we move forward with a planning exercise to identify where a stoplight would be best suited on 160 Street. That being said, we have to take into consideration what we think is going to be developed in this area. And I want to thank you, Mecky, for all of your hard work on this. This was not an easy task. And he brought, honestly, a very thoughtful analysis of pros and cons of all of those. And to be honest with you, Mecky would have taken any one of those solutions if money was, abundant and any of those options were available. I'm certain he would have tackled any one of those options. I do think we need to sit down with our land planners. We need to sit down with our engineering team, our traffic consultant, and figure out where in this area a stoplight makes sense, and then the timing of it. What I wouldn't want to do is go put this at Klotz Farm, and then we have some development comes in that we would go, that made absolutely no sense why we put the stoplight there. So I'm not, to Spyglass Falls residents, unfortunately what I'm saying is I can't guarantee you that a stoplight's going to be there by June of this year. I think we can work diligently to get something done, not 5 years, not 10 years down the road, but I mean in the near future. But I just want to make sure that we have the data points right so that when we put the stoplight in, it makes sense and it works for not only the development today, but the development in the future. And I think we can work on that over the coming months, Mackie, and look to
And I think that was kind of the point of this whole study was not necessarily telling everyone that this is the decision that we're making. This was something that we put everything together, we put all the data together, and this was kind of okay, we have an issue. This is the data that we have. These are the options, the matrices that we had. We take into consideration the overall holistic view of the environment. So I think this is kind of a good practice, good example of providing a solution and then thinking about it through and then talking through with everyone. This wasn't necessarily a choice that was already taken. This is not just for show. I think this was.
You gotta start somewhere.
Yeah.
Now, I will say too to residents of Spyglass Falls, my commitment to you when we met is that we're gonna solve this once and for all so that we don't have to continue to have this conversation. The decision today doesn't deviate from that commitment. We are going to solve this once and for all. It just, I believe, with the development that's coming to the east, it just doesn't make sense for us to go through this turmoil and consternation and fight between neighbors to go put a cut through in and then turn around and literally if this development comes in, it's gonna warrant a stoplight on 116th Street. Maybe that's a year, like maybe that development comes in a year from now. Well, why did we go through all this heartache if that development comes along? So, and again, it's for sale. I have no inclination as to what is going in there. I just know it's probably not going to be one home going forward. So the motion that I have is that I motion that we initiate a planning exercise to identify the location of 116th Street stoplight somewhere between Cumberland Road and Hoosier Road based on engineering's analysis, and we bring that back to the board at the appropriate time. I would like to set a target of no later than probably July to bring that back so that we show to the residents of this area that are suffering with a lot of traffic congestion that we're moving this forward. It's not an empty promise, but we're gonna start moving that forward. So that's my motion. Is there a second or alternative idea?
I'll second that.
Got a second? Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. You guys want to hang around for another public hearing? Or if not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mayor,
Motion.
can you take a vote on the actual resolution that was presented, even if it's to reject it?
We need to vote.
Oh,
We need to
okay.
vote on L.
Is there a motion to reject the resolution, L?
Motion.
Motion is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, meeting adjourned.
Good job.